Hey everyone, what's going on? It's Mike from the Hardcover Comic, and today on New Year's Eve 2019, I wanted to quickly talk about a few Marvel Omnibus Wishlist books that I have that hopefully we'll see get announced in 2019 or hear whispers of in 2019. So I've got five books here, same as I did with my DC Part One, and I'll talk about Part Two near the end of the video a little more, but yeah, let's dive right into it. Five books, five Marvel omnibuses that I hope we see or hear about in the year 2020. The first book on my wish list is Thunderbolts by Jeff Parker. So, Thunderbolts, of course, is the Suicide Squad of the Marvel Universe. They are the villains that do tasks for the government. Um, and in this case, the series I want to collect in an omnibus format. Well, there are a lot of great runs on Thunderbolts, and they have zero oversized hardcover love. I'm talking about the Jeff Parker stuff. This is numbers 138 through 174 of the 1997 series. So 37 issues total. Obviously, that would just fit into the one omnibus. So this, there's a whole bunch of trade paperbacks. You can still find them. They're a little difficult to find, but they're not expensive when you find them. Of course, 37 issues. You're going to be getting about 6 or 7 trade paperbacks. But yeah, I mean, there are a lot of really great Thunderbolts runs. Of course, there was Warren Ellis before Jeff Parker. There was, the original Kurt Busiek who started the series, as well as, Fabian Nicieza jumped in there for a little bit. But of course, Thunderbolts is the Jeff Parker run for me is the most enjoyable one because it had a lot of changing characters, and I thought it was a little more creative with the storylines and the character interactions. It ties into a lot of events. I think it starts off coming out of an event, Heroes Initiative or something, and then it goes into like Siege and eventually into Dark Rift. All these events that are going on. They don't affect it too much, but they do. It is noticeable. So there would be some potential for adding tie-ins to make it a little more comfortable for people. But Jeff Parker's run starts off with the team is basically Mr. X, Ghost. Um, Wow, I'm blanking. Anyway, they run into like the Agents of Atlas and stuff. Luke Cage steps in for a little bit to lead them, and you see new characters come, old characters leave, obviously, or get killed. Ant-Man's one of the members as well. I forget all the initial ones because I think within the first few issues, a couple characters die and they replace them with someone else. But it's a pretty fun run. That's right. You have Scourge as Nuke. Well, Scourge, his name is now used to be, of course, the character Nuke that I'm sure a lot of you are aware of. But it's a very fun read, and of course, like I said, there are a lot of other Thunderbolts runs that definitely deserve an oversized hardcover treatment. This would be my preference if they do start one off, but we'll see. Fingers crossed. It's a really fun series. Of course, villains are a good time, and yeah, we'll see what happens. It's the same thing with like I won't get into any DC stuff, but anyway, my first book on the list, Thunderbolts by Jeff Parker. Fingers crossed. Hopefully someday we'll see something like this or anything Thunderbolts. Next on my list, Moon Knight by Charlie Huston and Mike Benson. So this was the 2006 series that ran through to 2009. The entire series was 30 issues, so you could just collect it all into an omnibus. And I know it's a weird kind of spot to choose for for Moon Knight, because of course there is the classic stuff from the 80s, but there are epic collections for that older stuff. There is nothing aside from the premiere editions for the 2006 to 2009 volume of Moon Knight. It would be really nice to get it all in one oversized hardcover omnibus. You are talking about artists like David Finch, Mark Texeira. So it even though Mark Texeira's artwork is not the greatest, it's still overall I think these 30 issues do deserve oversized hardcover um, artwork, especially the David Finch stuff. I mean, some of the most beautiful artwork you'll see in a comic book, especially for Moon Knight. I mean, wow, talk about setting a presence. So the series starts off with Charlie Houston writing it. Huston or I never know. He starts writing it with David Finch doing the artwork, and they do a great job kicking off the series. Sort of making Moon Knight an extreme badass. As he's having this inner monologue about how he wants to be seen and how he wants people to see him coming when they know that the end is coming towards them. But David Finch really does a great job setting the mood, and then of course we see throughout the story as Moon Knight confronts his nemesis and sort of what position Mark Spector's in his life now and how he's dealing with it. We find out he's a cripple and he's sort of wanting to become a hero again, but he's not really putting in the initiative himself. And it starts off really great, and while the series does fall off as it gets along, and again, I'm no writer myself, but when Mike Benson gets on the series, it doesn't exactly feel the same as when Charlie Houston was writing it, but it's still good. And in terms of a Moon Knight omnibus, I think it would be a great place to go with starting that sort of thing, because they did the Bendis collection, which is fine, but I think this is a better representation of Moon Knight before you start getting into the more recent stuff with Warren Ellis and Jeff Lemire, which I believe the Jeff Lemire one does have an oversized hardcover. There is one coming. But like I said, amazing artwork. It's a pretty good storyline. I can't complain too much about it. I do prefer the Warren Ellis stuff, but in terms of Moon Knight, I think this is the place where I would suggest new readers go, and hopefully we'll see it. Moon Knight by Charlie Houston and Mike Benson. Fingers crossed. Hopefully. Next up on my list, Superior Spider-Man by Dan Slott. So I'm just talking about Superior Spider-Man. There were 33 issues for this series, as I'm sure a lot of us know. So there have been oversized hardcovers. I believe there were three of them. They are now out of print, probably expensive to get. I didn't even look. There are 2 complete collections that collect the entire series. At the end of the day, it's one hell of a time, because it's one of my favorite Marvel runs, definitely one of my favorite runs of the 2010s. And unfortunately, the oversized hardcovers, while they were great volumes, it's tough to get. And I just wanted to stick with Superior Spider-Man because it felt so nice, self-contained, even without having read any of the Prelude stuff for Dan Slott, which I hadn't. I basically picked up Superior Spider-Man at the comic shop one day, just started reading it, was not reading Amazing Spider-Man, did not know what was happening with Amazing Spider-Man. I didn't know that Dan Slott had been writing Spider-Man for years at that point, and it really got me. It was such a great read. I thoroughly enjoyed it. For those of you that don't know what the storyline's about, essentially in Amazing Spider-Man 700, Dr. Otto Octavius transfers his mind into Peter Parker's brain, and then Peter Parker, either he gets transferred, we don't know if he gets transferred into Otto's body or if he goes away, he gets locked up in his own brain. That gets explained within the series, but it's such a good time because you get to see Otto Octavius literally be in the shoes of Peter Parker. You've got artwork by guys like Ryan Stegman, Humberto Ramos, Camuncoli does some artwork there. I forget what his first name is now. Giuseppe Camuncoli does some artwork in there as well. Really, really tight artwork. Varying styles, granted, but all really tight along the way. Even Ramos's stuff is not horrific, even though it's not my favorite. But yeah, it's a very vibrant book, very exciting book that definitely works with oversized hardcover pages. And in general, I wouldn't ever be mad at them doing a Dan Slott Spider-Man era set of omnibuses. I don't know how many volumes that would be. I wouldn't know any of that stuff. That's beyond my pay grade. But Superior Spider-Man is fantastic. Again, you get to see a different perspective of Spider-Man. You get to see a villain live in his shoes and develop relationships and develop nemeses and interact with different characters, throughout the Marvel universe. It's fantastic. It's really well done, a really fun idea, and I think as a person, it got me into Spider-Man until it all actually stopped and went back, and then I stopped reading it. But Superior Spider-Man, Dan Slott. So next up, Thor by Jason Aaron. This was a very long run with a whole bunch of series. So starting off with Thor, God of Thunder, 25 issues there. Probably put some original Sin pages in there so we find out why Odin's son is no longer worthy. And then you had the Thor series, Thor's, which tied in with Secret Wars. And then you had Mighty Thor afterward. Of course, this is all with Jane Foster Thor at this point. You got Unworthy Thor, where he's basically using the ultimate, universe hammer axe combo for a little bit, and then you've got Thor 2018 1 through 16. And then King Thor, which was the most recent miniseries, which pretty much topped off his run, topped off Jason Aaron's run. So we're sitting at 92 issues, which would probably be 2 volumes. And you could, at the end of the day, you might be able to exclude Thor's because it did have to do with Secret Wars. You'd have to have a few pages, I think, to introduce Secret Wars and all that. But that's collecting the entire Jason Aaron run in two volumes would be really cool. As we get into, Donny Cates' run now, which should be very interesting to see. But, of course, in terms of artwork and oversized pages, we're talking about Esad Ribic here. Nick Klein, I believe, does some issues. Russell Dodderman. Just incredible talents that worked on Thor throughout the years. And there's no doubt in my mind that they deserve that it deserves the oversized hardcover treatment. Just for Esad Ribic's artwork alone. I mean, please, come on. And not only that, it's a really great story that goes through a lot of different variations of Thor and character changes for Thor. I mean, you literally get a full character change. So it's a very interesting run, and like I said, it's jumped around a lot, and it's really progressed throughout the years. I did jump on with God of Thunder. I thoroughly loved and enjoyed that series. I did not get a chance to jump in with the Jane Thor stuff and continue my custom binds, unfortunately, but hopefully we'll see it someday. Jason Aaron does have a lot of omnibuses with Marvel, and I suspect that Thor will get one. I'd be surprised if it didn't. And again, I mean, some of this artwork, I just can't wait to see it on the oversized hardcover pages. It's absolutely stunning. And I mean, hopefully, it's possible I did miss a few tie-ins here, but I think that's it. I'm not sure how I would handle the original Sin stuff and Secret Wars, but that's a question above my pay grade. And lastly for me is The Incredible Hulk by Bruce Jones. So this is following Peter David's run on this series. There's a gentleman named Bruce Jones who started writing the Hulk, and I personally was a huge fan of these issues. So it's issues number 34 through 76, along with the Hulk Wolverine 4-issue miniseries. So you have 47 issues total, collected currently across 3 trade paperbacks. I don't even think it collects all of Bruce Jones's run, but it does collect most of it. So those 3 trade paperbacks, I believe, are still possible to get. It might get a little pricey, but it would be really great to see this all in a nice big Hulk omnibus. The reason I really enjoyed this run, and I had read this run before I started reading any Immortal Hulk, and what really got to me was the return to the horror aspect of the Hulk, and really the horror and the mystery and that sort of Frankenstein monster personality comparison really fascinated me with the Bruce Jones run. It's very different from a lot of what I'd read with the Hulk. You've got artwork by guys like John Romita Jr., Mike Deodato Jr., Stuart Immonen, fantastic artwork. It definitely deserves an oversized treatment for the artwork alone. But, you've got a story where Bruce Banner's on the run. He's a fugitive, and we find out in this Brian Azzarello storyline some of the things that happen. And it's extremely dark and horrifying and brutal. We see the Hulk just sort of even living in this world where these dark things happen, and he's just this nasty monster that no one wants to be around. It's very sad, very depressing. But it when I was reading Immortal Hulk, it gave me that same vibe, with Samson, having Samson involved a lot, Samson doing therapy with Bruce Banner, Bruce really trying not to become the Hulk. It's all in this run as well. I really enjoy the Bruce Jones run. If you like the Immortal Hulk, you would definitely love this run as well. There's some Mike Deodato Jr. Hulk for you there. Pretty brutal stuff. But I really enjoyed this. I loved the return to the monster aspect of it, the horror aspect of it. And it's sort of this poetic horror, which is what I absolutely love. I really hope we get to see an omnibus for it, because there is some spectacular artwork on this series. Bruce Jones, Incredible Hulk, tops off my list for part 1 of my Marvel Omnibus Wishlist. Um, we'll be doing part 2 soon. Soon. So that's my list, and hopefully we get to see some of these books, or at least get some kind of whispers of them. I'd love to, with something like The Incredible Hulk by Bruce Jones. We're getting the Peter David stuff now, and Bruce Jones followed Peter David, so it'll be interesting to see if we get that omnibus afterwards. We'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. But that's my list. Let me know what your guys' list is. I'm always curious about that. What other runs you're interested in? I will be doing another part, so hopefully I'm not trying to steal ideas from anyone or anything because I have a bunch of ideas for Marvel and DC omnibuses. But let me know what you guys thought. Some omnibuses you'd love to see if you'd buy any of the ones I mentioned. But thank you guys very much. Like I said, I'm recording this and releasing it on New Year's Eve. So happy New Year's to everyone, and looking forward to 2020 with the hardcover comic and some nice official releases as well as some custom binds. Should be a great year. So looking forward to it. Happy New Year's, all hardcover comic collectors, anybody who's watching this video. And as always, this was Mike from the Hardcover Comic. Until next time, you stay classy, Internet.